We're still in Jacob. We're in Jacob, actually part 4, I think this is. We went through the obvious ones, them being born, what their names meant, the selling of the birthright, the Esau going to kill him, and now Jacob is running from his brother, fleeing to Laban, his uncle, and we just had Jacob's ladder, where God met him and said, I'm going to give you all this land. I'm going to be doing all these things for you. And Jacob said, good, if you do all those things, then I'll make you my God. And how he put the conditions on it. We're getting now to where he meets Rachel for the first time. And this starts to bring out a little more of Jacob's personality. We've already seen some of it, the deceitfulness and the snaring and that, and his mother being the one that's kind of behind it and driving it. But now Jacob's on his own. And in Genesis 29, he has finally made this journey from home towards his brother's house, towards his uncle's house. And, he's weary and he's tired, and he just had the Jacob's ladder experience. And in 29, you think me knowing where I'm going, I would have these pages marked. So let's just back up into 28, 22. The stone that I've set up as a sacred pillar will be God's house, and of everything you give me, I'll give back a tenth. 29:1. So Jacob got up and set out for the land of the Easterners. He saw a well in a field in front of him, near which 3 flocks of sheep were lying down. That well was their source of water because the flocks drank from the well. A huge stone covers the well's opening. When all of the flocks had gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the well's opening, water the sheep, and return the stone to the place at the well's opening. The idea behind that was not so much people stealing water as things falling into the well. This well, from what I found, is basically a hole in the ground. It's not like where it's a rock and you go into the rock and down in, like a lot of them I've seen. They're actually like a cave. You go into the cave and go down these hand-hewn steps and in. This was actually something where something could come walking along and fall in. And it was a substantial stone. It took more than one person to move it out of the way. So he says to them, well, he's there. Jacob said to them, where are you from, my brothers? And they said, we're from Haran. Then he said, do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson? And they said, we know him. And they said, is he well? They said, he's fine. In fact, this is his daughter Rachel coming now with the flock. Today there's going to be quite a bit of reading, and I apologize, but there is not a lot of things to point out here right away in the beginning, so it's going to be reading. Coming up. He said, okay, now Jacob says, it's only midday. It's not time yet to gather the animals, water the flock, and then go put them out to pasture. It's kind of basically, what are you doing here? This isn't the time of day to water the beasts and send them away, and then flock. Usually it's the morning when you do this, and the evening. They said, we can't until all the herds are gathered, and then we'll roll the stone away from the well's opening and water the flock. While he was still talking to them, Rachel came with her father's flock, since she was its shepherd. So she's with her father's flock, Laban, and she's the shepherd of the flock. She's just not bringing them for water. She's actually the shepherd. When Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his uncle, and the flock of Laban, Jacob came up, rolled the stone from the well's opening, and watered the flock of his uncle Laban. There was one interpretation of this where they said that they thought Jacob was showing off, because the stone was so heavy that it took a couple people to move it out of the way, but Jacob saw Rachel and went, watch this, and kind of did it on his own, and he watered them for her. So he was kind of right away smitten with Rachel. So and Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. because of who she was. Jacob told Rachel that he was related to her father and that he was Rebekah's son. She then ran to tell her father. When Laban heard about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him. Laban embraced him, kissed him, and invited him to his house. Okay, I want to stop right there for a second. I have it right here. No. Boy, there goes the brain. The other person at the well, right before this, that meant, he said, if Lord, the woman that comes to me and asks me if I would like water and feeds, it's her, yeah, his mother, yeah. Yeah, my brain. I was thinking Rebecca, and then I went, no, I went further back. Another meeting at the well where the person says, God, if this is what happens, then this will be the person. So they're meeting them at the wells. There's a lot of little coincidences of meeting them at the wells and that kind of stuff. So, but now here's an interesting thing about Laban and Jacob and Rebecca. So we're starting, let's go back to 29:13. When Laban heard about Jacob and his sister's son, he ran to meet him. Laban embraced him, kissed him, and invited him into his house, where Jacob recounted to Laban everything that had happened. And Laban said, yes, you are my flesh and blood. Jacob recounts the deception, the deceit, how his mother and him together stole the birthright, how his brother's out to kill him because he stole his birthright. And what does Laban say? Ah, you're my flesh and blood. Now I know you're my flesh and blood because you have done these deceitful things. It's interesting because he kind of can glance over that really quick. But if Jacob told him everything, and then Laban says, now I know you're my, I see the mafia guy. Ah, you're my son, come here. You murdered him? Good, kind of a thing. So that's a real important thing going here, that Laban isn't the most, boy, that was coming out wrong, the most nicest. He wasn't the nicest person in the world either. So here's the brother and the sister that are the same, Rebecca, the ensnarer, and the brother. And so out of all this deceit, they're all happy and laughing that, oh yeah, you are my son. So let's go to, it doesn't have a number here for me, 14. After Jacob had stayed with Laban for a month, Laban said to Jacob, you shouldn't have to work for free just because you were my relative. Tell me what you would like to be paid. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The older was named Leah, and the younger Rachel. Leah had delicate eyes. I'm going to get back to it in a second. But Rachel had a beautiful figure and was good looking. Okay. There is question on this delicate eyes. Some say she had a vision problem, is translated out one way. But when dragging into the root, it means dull and lifeless. It's not the sense that she couldn't see. Some people say she was cross-eyed or something like that. But so there's the 2 interpretations on how that goes. The Jewish scholars tend to think it means dull and lifeless. And when you get back to the idea that the soul, the eye is the window to the soul and this and that, she just didn't have that. And now Rachel's got the sparkle. She's got the looks. She's a good-looking woman. She had a beautiful figure and was good-looking. And she had these, I'm going to assume, nice eyes because they pointed out that Leah didn't have these. Doesn't say anything else about Leah other than her eyes. So Jacob loved Rachel after a month, and said, I will work for you for 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. And Laban said, I'd rather give her to you than to another man. Stay with me. So I want to bring out a little thing here that I was reading in these studies as I was doing. To profess to love someone we do not know intimately is merely to love our mental image of that person. We can't love them, we don't know them, we love the mental image of what we think this person is. And then if it doesn't measure up to our mental image, then the love we have turns to disillusionment. You're not who I thought you were. You're not the woman I married, because of who we think they are, and we don't take the time to get intimate and learn. The same happens with God. If we have a mental image of what God should be, which Jacob did, if you do this, this, and this, and this, then I will make you my God. If we have an image of what God should be, and an image of how he's going to help us and what he's going to do for us, when he doesn't correspond to our image of him, then we become disillusioned. And we go, oh, you don't love me. Oh, you're not with me. Oh, you don't care about me. Instead of learning who God is. We've spent all that time learning the names of God, learning who God is, why God is who he is. And as we come to a fuller understanding of who God is, we now understand when things happen, it's not that he doesn't love us, it's not that he hates, it's that it's in his plan. We are working with that. I didn't get cancer because God hates me. I wasn't an alcoholic because God hated me. It's because I was a jerk is why I was an alcoholic. And I got cancer because I was an alcoholic. My cancer is directly related to my alcoholism. God didn't give me my alcoholism. God didn't give me cancer. I did it. I understand that. Who walked me through it? God did. Who loves me? God does. But with the intimate understanding of who God is and how he loves us, now I've got the right look at how God is. And also, God's going to want a bride. He's going to want a betrothed who loves him for who he is, not for who we think he is. And the other interesting line he said here is, infatuation is usually in a hurry because it's self-centered. It's all about us. It's all about me. It's all about me. It's not about you. Oh, it's not about you. It's all about me. So, okay, so much for that aside. So at 19, he asks for Rachel, the younger sister. He says he'll work 7 years for Rachel. Laban said, I'd rather give her to you than to another man, so stay with me. That is not sure. That's, well, I'd rather you had her than anybody else. Yeah, good. So Jacob worked for Rachel for 7 years. Here is one of the most romantic things that you're ever going to hear. Jacob worked for Rachel for 7 years, but it seemed like a few days because he loved her. Aww, isn't that neat? Working for you for 7 years, no problem. I loved every minute of it. That's so romantic. So Jacob said to Laban, okay, the time's come, give me my wife. Why does he want his wife? So I can sleep with her.
He's been around her for 7 years. He's come to know her a little bit.
But she's good looking. What's it say? He saw her that she was good looking. He saw her that she was, and what do I give her to me? It's time. I want to sleep with her. So yes, he's been around her a little bit, and yes, they've had their little courtship, but it's not, let her come be my wife. Not that, it's like, give her now, mine. I've waited too long for this. Just think how Jacob is. Think so. Hey, I like, wait, Jacob turns into the father of Israel here. So Laban invited all the people of that place and prepared a banquet. However, in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he slept with her. Laban is just as deceitful and cunning as his sister was, swapping out birthrights. In a sense. And here's his reasoning. Oh, we'll get to his reasoning in a minute. Leah brought her to Jacob and he slept with her. 24. Laban had given his servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her servant. Zilpah comes in play later. That's why they mention her here. So Leah's servant is Zilpah. In the morning, I like how the translation says this, there she was, Leah. Jacob said to Laban, what have you done to me? Didn't I work for you to have Rachel? Why did you betray me? Laban said, where we live, we don't give the younger woman before the oldest.
Should have said that 7 years ago.
Thank you for 7 years ago. But what's his thinking? This is who this man is.
Your uncle was Jacob.
I just assumed it was dark. Yeah, I know. Well, we're gonna. So we don't give the oldest. So he said. Yeah, I gotta stop saying so. So he says, here's what we'll do: complete the celebratory week with this woman, Leah. Then I will give you this other woman too for your work. He's not even calling them Leah and Rachel. They're his daughters, and he's calling them this woman and that woman. You can have this woman, you can have that one. Whichever one you want, just, okay. So he works, but it's complete the celebratory week. That's the week of celebration for the marriage to Leah. And again, as I'd said, I always thought he worked 7 years, got Leah, worked 7 years, got Rachel. I was wrong. I'll give you this other woman too for your work, if you work for me 7 more years. So when the time's done, when the celebratory week is done, then you can have Rachel also, and then just work another 7 years for me. So he basically got paid in advance with Rachel. So this is what he did. He completed the celebratory week with this woman, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. Laban had given his servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her servant. These two servants come in real important here as we know the story, because out of those two women also come heads of the tribes of Israel. We're going to be getting to that probably next week. So Jacob slept with Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he worked for Laban 7 more years. As I said, the deceit is a family trait in this family. Laban, Rebecca, it's all deceit. Laban doesn't have the caring for his family, calling him this woman and that woman. It's just, yeah, well, we don't marry the younger before the older. We always do the older first, so here you go. No attempt in 7 years to get Leah married to someone else that we know of. I read all the Jewish, I told you I kind of read the Jewish traditions and what the Bible has to say about that, and it's really interesting, and it's got nothing to do with the Bible. But it was deceit. And then and it's like, oh, but it's nothing that I deceived you. And there is some things in here about the intimacy of knowing someone before you marry them. And there was the advantage that they lived in proximity to each other. And so he got to know her a little bit, but he still was not wanting her. That when you read when you dig it out in the Hebrew, it wasn't really that he wanted her out of love. It was more out of lust. It was more out of lust. Because from the moment he saw her, it was like, hey, let me feed the flock. Let me do it, And it's a typical man thing. We do. Boy, look at that. We move the stone and prove how strong we are. And one of the Jewish traditions here says, and I don't see it this way, because he was with the man saying, shouldn't you be putting the flocks where they're supposed to be? And then he saw Rachel. The Jewish tradition puts it, he saw Rachel, and then he says, hey, why don't you guys go take your flocks and take them away, and I'll help Rachel. So even their tradition in the Jewish tradition is that it was a sexual attraction, not a love attraction. So I'm going to stop there because if we go any further, we will be getting into next week, and it's just going to turn into too long of a thing tonight, where Leah and Rachel get into a baby making contest, and it's a one-up. I one-up you, and I one-up you, and then Rachel gets all panicky about what she's supposed to do. So we're going to learn all about that next week. And neat. So any questions, comments, concerns?